Hi, welcome to Messier Mantra. I'm your host, Mike Messier. Filmmaker Rick Chandler is back from Boston Film Family. Hey Rick, how's it going?
How's it going?
Good. Now, on this episode, I want to talk with you about your process because I'm always feeling like somewhere out there, some teenage guy or girl, or both, hopefully, and they're thinking, hey, I want to get involved in filmmaking. And as you and I were talking about off air, this is a tough business. It's not, it's always good to have a rich uncle, but many of us don't. But at the same time, you know, you've made about 8 feature films, and I guess the simple question is, although it may not be a simple answer, how do you get started, Rick? Like, if you have an idea for a movie, where do you start?
The best advice I can give to anybody just starting out would probably be, besides don't do it, unless you have a contact somewhere that's going to, you know, hire you to be part of a studio and you learn from people who know what they're doing. The best advice I could really give is, you know, don't just stay out of your own head.
Okay.
You know, I think people who, they start this process and they're like, I have this 6-minute script and it's innovative and it's going to win 17 awards at festivals no one cares about, and right. You know, after that I'm going to be moving to California, and it's like, just do it, you know, do it, and if it's bad, it's bad. You learn from your mistakes, get out of bed, put both feet on the ground, and do it again.
Right.
You're gonna get angry, people are gonna come at you, but just keep doing it. Don't think that you're God's gift to filmmaking, because you're gonna fail.
The ego thing is something that you struck upon in the last episode, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've been a victim of my own ego at times too, because as a filmmaker, you have to balance that feeling like my idea is so great, or I'm so great, or this script is so great that it has to be made, and other people's considerations or feelings or schedules or need for food or shelter or gas money, whatever considerations that you might, in logical thinking, put towards other people, you really put towards the project first, and that's how you can get sunk by your own ego. Is that something you want to talk about a little bit as a precautionary to folks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, you know, as a person, like, I've been on both sides of the fences because I've done a lot of acting too for different people, so I kind of understand that there is kind of like, once you start to treat people like they're not human, you're in trouble.
Right.
You got to feed people. You know, I often don't pay people. I often have long hours. I mean, some stuff is unavoidable. People
right.
get angry, stressed out, whatever. That's, you know, that stuff is unavoidable. But you gotta feed people, and, you know, you gotta make sure that they're, I guess, mentally healthy, and they're not gonna have like a breakdown because of the conditions of set. But at the same time, there is only one thing that matters, and that is getting everything done.
Right.
You know, and like, at the end of the day, like, everybody has to be willing to make a sacrifice.
And it's such a balance because
yeah,
as the filmmaker, as the guy, or in this case guy, it could be a woman as well, who's the director, producer, who's kind of, their job is to get the bottom line, get the movie done. But then you have the human element, and that's the element that is tough, because suddenly someone's got, their kid is sick, or suddenly they're sick, or somebody died, and these things, you can plan your schedule out, you can double confirm everybody, and inevitably something happens that we're not prepared for. Do you have any kind of war stories, so to speak, about maybe a situation that came up, without, you know, naming names or anything, but just something that came up unavoidable that you had to deal with, and how did you deal with it?
To be honest, in 13 years, I've been very good at predicting when this stuff was coming up, by just analyzing patterns in behavior. You know, people change slightly, then you got to kind of take them aside and ask why. If somebody's honest, there's always a solution. If somebody's skating around, things happen. You know, we had a web series that was supposed to be shot in 2 weeks. It's called Ruby. It's like a crime thing. It's being made for YouTube, and, you know, now that's going to be shot in the spring because of what you just said.
Right.
You know, people just waited too long to have conversations. And that's an example, of what you have everything planned, and it's just life is getting in the way, and then you say to yourself, okay, I was like, this is going to be a better project, or I could go into it with less people, and then I'm going to be like everyone else that gets stuck, and I don't want to be like everyone else.
Right. And I've been around myself, and my own projects have had problems too. So, but seeing sometimes where there's so many situations that something gets snake bit, whether it's in people can't agree on the script, or maybe they do agree on the script, you can't agree on the casting, or you cast someone and then it turns out they're not emotionally as connected to the project that you thought they were. Maybe they lied to themselves. They wanted to be involved, didn't want to be left out, so they kind of convinced themselves they wanted to be in this movie, and then they really didn't have it in them to do it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or the worst to me is when you actually film something and then editing comes around and there's a hang up in editing, which can kill stuff, or audio. I mean, there's all these, I guess you call it choke points. Which
there's a lot.
How can you get choked out? And the thing that's I'm always respectful of is when someone like yourself finishes, and that's what I started calling people like yourself, finishers. He's a guy who finishes. And whether this is their favorite type of movie or they're not their favorite, but you got to respect the people that finish, because the ones that have a trail of 20 or 30 unfinished projects, then you wonder why people even audition for such and such.
I don't know. What it is I think they, even if it's on a local level, they have like an online presence, and people don't actually look to see those 30 unfinished projects.
Right.
I think that's the problem. Is now social media is such a flash in the pan, people just see that one post and they analyze that one post rather than like a person's entire history. So they don't always realize that I have like all this stuff out there. They just look at that one thing, or that like, oh, what is the genre? Oh, who is in this? And like, to me, none of that really matters. What matters is the person's track record. Like, are they going to get this done? And as an actor, that's what matters to me.
Right.
Is I've worked for I've had some major roles and stuff that was good, and the casts were like 50 people, and I've never seen the projects. Nobody knows. No one will talk about it.
It's going into the void.
It's in the void, and like, I don't want to be, at all costs, I would not be one of those people.
Yeah.
I
remember I acted in a piece that was really cool piece. It was like a one-night shoot, and the guy somehow had a crane that he got from like Showtime had done a series in Rhode Island, and for whatever reason their crane was available, so this guy got a Showtime network crane for his little short film, and I was in this thing with a little 5-minute scene, and I was like, this is some of the best acting I've ever done, because it was all improv. I was playing a comedian's heckler, so it was perfect for me because I get to yell at the comedian, and the comedian yelled back and blah blah blah, and then for years it was always like, whatever happened to that thing? Whatever happened to that short? And nobody knew, just like you said. And I finally saw the guy who produced and wrote and directed this thing, and I saw him in a coffee house, and he was with a college kid who was like his protege for film. And I'm like, hey, whatever happened to that movie? He's like, I never got around to editing it. I'm like, and so now you're teaching a kid. And I just shook my head because I was so frustrated. I'm like, man, there was literally about 100 people involved in this shoot for one night. There was people playing audience members, myself, the comedian. And, it makes you, if you're not laughing, you're crying about it, but it's,
It's kind of like a little cult of personality with some of these people.
Right.
Because I bump into them and you're right, they'll have like a protege.
Right.
They'll have like some guy throwing money into it. And I'm like, what are you telling these people? What are you showing them? Did they make a fake trailer for something? Like, it blows my mind apart.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how are they doing that? I mean, I could benefit probably by lying. I just don't.
Right.
I'm like, my work could speak for itself, but I think in this world of like flash in the pan social media posts, as something that gets eyes on what you do, that's what happens.
Right, and trust me, I'm not. From my perspective, I had my own kind of coming to Jesus film, which was, Disregard the Vampire, Mike Messier documentary, where I basically aired my own ailments as a filmmaker, which was I was trying for about 8 years to make 2 feature films that needed at least $200,000 each,
That's a lot of
preferably
money.
more. Right, which I didn't have. And I just kind of naively went into the world thinking, well, I've done a bunch of short films. People know I can do that. Why won't I get investors? Why won't I get some small businessman or the dentist? Or, I just had this, I wouldn't say an arrogance, I'd say more of a naivety. I wasn't being arrogant because I knew that maybe we'll have to go on 200 meetings, 2,000 meetings. But the reality is I never teamed up with that collaborator that was really the business-oriented person. Because I thought, well, I'll just be the artist and I'll have some business-oriented person. But sometimes it's hard to find those business-oriented people.
They're in it for themselves,
Right.
They'll come up with their own script, even if they're not a creative type, or they're making something weird.
Right.
And that's where it becomes really hard. It's hard to find the person that's like, because they know that whatever their investment is going to be is not going to be millions of dollars on our level.
Right.
So it's very hard to find that business-oriented person. Like in my case, I'm good at running a company, but I'm not good at finding an investor and sitting down with them and selling. I'm not a salesman.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just like the bottom line person, and then also a creative type. So yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And one thing that came out of that, 8 or 9 years process was, now when I approach a film, I'll say, what can I make that I can afford?
Yeah.
And that's actually helped. And that was a lesson that I had maybe 20 years ago or 15, but I forgot that lesson. And then I had to go through this process and come back to it. What if I have $500? What can I make for $500? If I have 2,000, and if I have nothing, what can I make for nothing? And believe it or not, you can't make a movie for nothing if you really, because you have a smartphone or you have, whatever. But you can do things for almost any budget if you want to. But it's kind of nice to know what that budget is first before you start to make the movie, make promises you can't keep, let people down, let yourself down, get in over your head. The worst thing that a filmmaker can do, or even a fledgling filmmaker, is get into credit card debt.
Yeah. That was an option for my web series, was we needed someone to shoot it. And when people offered me money, but not as an investor. It was like, let's do this. And although I appreciate that, I'm like, when am I going to pay this back 10 years from now?
Right.
It's just so I can't. Let's just delay this so we're not in a worse situation. And you always have to expect to have knives to your throat in this.
Right.
And people don't think that's going to happen to them for some reason.
Yeah. It's that naivety sometimes, and and then there's a thing with, we read the success stories, and one of them that comes to mind, Robert Rodriguez, the famous, he made El Mariachi for $7,000, and then he's making movies with Salma Hayek and Antonio Banderas. Well, the $7,000 figure that's quoted often is not accurate, first of all, and second of all, he was a guy who went to film school but he did work very hard. I mean, he went to a human laboratory for 2 months and let them do tests on his body in order to raise some money to make his initial movies. So there is always outliers. There's always exceptions. There's always people that are going to do crazy things and maybe go into credit card debt and somehow turn it around.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be one of those casualties of the artistic war, so to speak.
I consider myself somewhat of a casualty now. I mean, I'm not in debt, but I feel like I've put the sacrifice I had to make in my personal life.
Right.
You strain relationships and friendships and family to do this, and people don't realize that. They just think that it's glorious, You're going around and shaking hands, and people are like, "Oh, cool! I want to watch your movie." It's not true.
Right.
Like, people are calling you up saying, like, "Screw you."
Yeah.
Like, this movie offended me, and go to, I'm not going to say anything on the show, but they're threatening you on YouTube and whatever, and it's just like, hey, that's what you got to deal with. You know, you want exposure. That's the exposure you're gonna get until you're almost part of the studio system making the big bucks. That whole thing from what I do to making the big bucks, you're dealing with all these trolls and like, you know, little like wormy type of people. You know, people think that you're not gonna do that. You know, you're just gonna, all these people are gonna like fawn over you.
Right.
Like, that's not true, man. People are angry with you. They want to be like the star, and they want you to feed them right and treat them right, and it's like you don't have any money,
right?
You know, so you're in a hard position. Like I said, you have to be diligent. It's the only way.
Have you ever had an actor upset with you that you didn't cast them as the lead role or in a role at all? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing, even if it's an actor that you've worked with in the past. But then for whatever reason, they just don't happen to be right for the next project, and then they're angry with you because. But of course, they'll do 5 other movies with 5 other directors, and they won't get you any work on that. You know what I mean?
It happens. Yeah, and it's weird. Yeah. 'Cause if you had all the support from 10 years ago till now, you would actually have the support system you need. But like people either retire, move, or they get mad.
Right.
And it's like you can't please everyone. It's impossible.
Right.
Especially with no money, because it's not like, oh yeah, here's $300 here you go, thanks. Right. It's like people are just like, what I want as a payment is to be the star and whatever, and it's just like, but you don't fit what I just wrote, and they get mad. I don't know. I
had a theory, which I still have, which is a lot of people in the independent film world especially have a daddy complex. And it's more so than a mommy. They're not looking for mommy's love. They're looking for daddy's approval.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, and the filmmaker, if it is a male, it could be a female too, but plays the role of daddy who hands out. It doesn't have to be money. It's approval or the pat in the head. And some of these actors are so eager for daddy's approval. Maybe they didn't have that father figure in their real life, and so they look to these people with a camera and a role and a script. That's the daddy figure. And
I've noticed people who do that can generate some local buzz.
Right.
I'm not a father figure.
Right.
I'm like a straight, I'm a creative type. I'm a mix between a creative type and a businessman. I am not a father figure. I am so far from that, and I do see what you're saying. Like sometimes people, they do get upset. They want that like coddling,
right?
You know, that nurturing environment. It's like
validation.
That validation, that's tough for me.
Yeah,
because I'm always thinking of the next step.
Right.
And sometimes I forget that that's what these people want. Like that's their payment. You know what I mean? I say I don't care about that stuff.
Right.
When I'm acting in a movie, I want it to get finished. I want it to look pretty good. I don't care who likes me. I don't care who wants to give me a hug at the premiere. But I just forget that's what people want.
Part of the game, so to speak. Now, before we drive everybody into depression.
Sorry, I got a tendency to do that.
Let's flip it around a little bit, because I know you have had premieres and you have had screenings in Boston and so forth. My friend Joe Jaffo Carriere used to speak about your film premieres and having a good time and stuff at them. So, give the people, what are some of the upsides of making films on a limited budget, even, but some of the fun parts of it?
All right. The fun parts, I guess, seeing it come to life.
Right.
Like you mentioned, the premieres. That whole, getting to, sometimes you wish you could stretch it out more, because it's like something you work on for 2 years. It's like done in 2 hours.
Right.
But honestly, it's like, it's super cool to see this giant collaborative of 50 people that somehow came to life.
Right.
Happen, and like there it is on a screen, and then hearing the reactions in the theater. That's cool.
That is a huge payoff, I think. I think you just articulated very well that creative situation where, like you said, 50 or 100 people came together to make this 2-hour movie, and now it's being screened publicly, and people can like it, they can dislike it, they can love it, but they're seeing it. And like we were saying before, the finisher, like if you are a finisher and you have it done, there is a great feeling of achievement with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to bother me when people didn't like things.
Right.
Now I look at it differently. I'm just like, what matters is the fact that people are seeing this.
Right.
You know, that's what you need to do, is get people to see it. They hate it, they hate it.
Right. I was looking at some old reviews on my own work a couple of days ago, and the same website, some reviews of my stuff were saying I was an idiot, or, moron. Other ones were giving me 4.5 stars for an animation piece I did, Shtick Man. So it's all over the place, and that's the thing about art. Art is subjective. You know what? I mean, I saw Quentin Tarantino. I'm a huge fan of his, but I saw the new one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I was like, I saw it, I liked it, enjoyed it, but I'm like, this is not one of his best films. And I feel like when I'm talking to people about it who've also seen the movie, and I'm saying why I don't think it's one of his best, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I say it's not one of his best, and it's almost like people are afraid, even in a private phone call, to say why it wouldn't be the best movie. It's like, well,
I noticed. Yeah, that's becoming a cultural thing, though.
Yeah.
People don't want to get into an argument about stuff now, and I don't blame them, because it seems like it's very easy to do this,
Right.
But yeah.
How does social media come into play for you in Boston Film Family? How much time or effort do you put into your website or Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? How much of that aspect of marketing is part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine? Is it an everyday thing, or just when you got a new movie out?
At least on my personal Facebook and Instagram, although I post a lot of personal stuff, you always have to have a little bit of creative presence to remind people you exist. And then on all the individual stuff, the website, and I guess I have a Twitter, but I don't really use it. It's more like Instagram. But yeah, I put it, it's like a constant thing. It's like a part-time job almost.
Right.
Because then you're out of the algorithms and people forget, get the comments,
Right. And that's another dual edged sword, is because to me sometimes it's like I have different parts of my brain. It's like, I've got this book I want to read because this book is inspiring my creativity and my writing, and I just want to read it. Mm-hmm. But then I've got 2 hours in this window of time, and then I want to get on the computer and make sure that someone liked my comment about whatever, or something. So it's interesting how the clock plays a factor in how we schedule our days.
Yeah, big time for me.
Rick, what's next for you as far as, are you writing anything these days? Are you getting ready to shoot something? What's going on with you?
I'm going to be directing and producing something I wrote, a web series called Ruby.
Okay.
It's like a crime series that takes place in Providence, Rhode Island. It's like a love story, too.
Nice. Now, is that something that you're looking for actors for? Can people go to your website, or you already get your cast?
We cast it because we were going to shoot it, and then it had a delay.
Okay.
So I think we're good. I think we're all ready to go. We just didn't want to do it in the winter, so we waited for the spring. So I think that's kind of it. I mean, I'm sure some of the extras in background will switch out. But so yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to come to the social media, it's either Boston Film Family, or I think the actual way to find it's Boston Undead, I think is what it is on social media, on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. What's
your advice, because we didn't talk too much about your acting, but someone out there who wants to be an actor, what do you say to them to get started? Say they've never done anything, they just have an idea in their head. I want to get into some acting. What's your suggestion for that type of folk?
Well, this one's a little bit easier. I would say that if you want to act, literally I don't care who you are or what you think you are, for at least 5 years, I'd say do everything, whether it gets finished or not.
Okay.
I don't care if it's background, I don't care if you're a bad guy, a good guy, forget about your image and all that. Nobody knows who you are, and 5 years from now, nobody's gonna care.
Right.
So do everything, get that experience that you need, Because too many people start off like they're trying to play specific characters, have a specific image. They want to work with specific people. None of that matters. Then you could start to do that. Then you could start to work on what you want your niche to be. But you know, I meet too many people that act, you know, they have these ridiculous resumes with like 4 background things on there from Adam Sandler.
Right.
And then they're just like, yeah, I deserve to be lead in this. And I'm like, audition. And like, they don't audition. They don't come to the auditions. And I'm like, but I don't know what you can do. And they're just like, yeah, they want to like drive to go and do it. And I'm like, you have to. It's the way it goes.
Yeah. I've noticed, unfortunately, in this area of you know, Boston, Rhode Island, so forth, sometimes there is a feeling of entitlement among some of our acting friends.
Yeah. They don't want to audition.
They don't want to audition, and it makes you wonder if they realize that that's part of the process. I mean, the famous story, Jack Nicholson went on 10,000 auditions before he got the spot in Easy Rider. And he wasn't the star of that. He made an impression, but he had 10,000 auditions, 9,999 or whatever were no, you know. And it seems like that rejection is such a part of the business that some folks want to avoid auditioning because they fear the rejection that may happen.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the father figure thing. They just want that pat on the head, you know.
I try and tell people, like, thanks for coming out, and you know, make them feel good in that way. But I mean, there is like you got to be realistic. Like, if I went to 40 auditions, I am a more experienced actor than some, and I would expect to only get a handful of things, and it might not be what I necessarily want to play.
Right.
I always play bad guy, and I'm tired of it, actually, believe it or not.
Right.
Like, it's just like, okay, it's like, I don't have to play, you know, it's like, I've done it. And people are like, yeah, but you like have a beard and long hair. Like, all right, whatever, like, I'll shave. You know?
Right.
It's not the end of the world, but, you know.
It's better to be typecast than not cast, though. We'll say that.
That's true, yeah. That is true.
Well, coming up on just 30 seconds left. This episode flew by because whenever you have 2 guys who make films complaining about people, it just goes by quickly. But I would say, to put it on a positive spin, like you were saying about 10 minutes ago, that creative reward of seeing the final movie made, that does make it all worth it. All the gripes, all the complaints. When you're in that theater and you're surrounded by people that help make the movie and you're seeing this finished thing and you get your name on it.
Right, yeah. You got to look at the big picture.
Right, literally.
Yes, literally, yeah.
So Rick Chandler, thanks again.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Thanks for watching this episode of Messier Mantra. We'll see you next time.